Alright guys, welcome back. GM Light here. We got a bit of surprising news. I actually didn't know this. I guess this has been out there for a little bit, but apparently Smile 2 is actually a pretty long movie. I was kind of surprised by this. I wouldn't have thought that. I even think the first one was teetering on being a bit too long, but nonetheless, it's still a very rewatchable, entertaining movie. But the reason I'm kind of surprised by this is that I feel like most of the reasons that would justify a movie like Smile or Smile 2 being longer is the setup and explanation. I feel like some of what makes that first movie longer is the explanation of what the curse is, how it works, it kind of manifesting itself in the life of Kevin Bacon's daughter. I forget the actress's name, but basically it taking over her life and then figuring out what it is and how she could potentially stop it. And now that we have a sequel to that, you would have thought that it would probably be shorter. I would have thought a movie like this would be the standard hour and a half, 90-minute fare for a horror sequel, but no, this one's actually a good bit longer, almost 20 minutes longer. It's apparently 2 hours and 12 minutes. That is longer than Thor Ragnarok, all 3 Iron Man movies, good amount of other movies. It's actually only trailing 6 minutes behind Terrifier 2, which is considered to be pretty long for a horror movie. And with Terrifier 2, I feel like that was more intriguing to me. It seemed like they had kind of grand, mythic story to tell in that movie, but in this one, it's a little bit more of a concerning detail for me. And I've said before, I'm a little bit worried about Smile 2. I thought that first trailer didn't really sell me on the movie. Just some of the smile, the effects, some of it comes off a bit more cheesy than it did in the first movie. And I've said this before, but that first Smile trailer didn't exactly sell me on the movie. It looked a bit generic. And of course, Smile really won me over. I really enjoyed it. I'm still very excited to see Smile 2, what it does. I really do like this setup and the idea of the story, but I still can't help but be a bit worried that maybe this 2 hour 12-minute runtime is a bit bloated. I mentioned before that, Terrifier 2 is 2 hours and 18 minutes. I didn't think that movie was bloated. I think for what it was going for, it definitely told it well. It got across what it was going for because it did feel like almost grand comic book like storytelling. But with Smile 2, I don't really know if it feels like that, especially too because this is such a studio driven horror movie. I'm a bit worried that it might just be a case of a bloated runtime. And in my mind, maybe they could justify it, maybe it could win me over when it comes out, but I'm a bit worried that this amount of time is just not necessary and they could cut this down to maybe an hour 45 minutes. That's what I imagine this movie would have been. I really did not think that it would come out to be 2 hours and 12 minutes, but I also don't want to write it off. I don't want to say that instantly it's dead in the water or anything. I want this movie to succeed, I really do, but I don't know, for some reason I really can't imagine in my head what would make this movie longer than that first one. Like I said, you get this character witnessing this horrible thing. She starts to be followed around by this curse. She figures out what this curse is. She tries to stop it. We all see what happens. In this one, very different setting, very different character that we're following, but I don't imagine, besides new scenarios for the Smile ghost to haunt her, why this would be longer. It's not like what this thing is a mystery to the audience at this point. This is something that we could really be caught up on quickly, and unless they really have been hiding things from us in the trailer, it just concerns me a bit. The only other horror movie off the top of my head that I can think of was The Conjuring 2, and even then, I feel like that movie was kind of pushing its runtime a bit despite being very good. But I guess that's why I don't work for Hollywood. I'm not paid to do the thinking. I'm just, I watch. I'm the consumer. I'm not the producer, so I don't know what is best for this movie, and I'm very much in the camp of if a runtime is justified by being longer, it's a movie that should be longer. I think that if a movie justifies its runtime, that's perfectly fine for me. I guess another example I could think of is the It movies, but even then, those 2 movies are adapting a book that's over 1,000 pages long, so not exactly the same case. Of course, now that I say that, I'm starting to think of more examples, but you get the point. In the modern age of horror, I feel like we really don't get a lot of these horror movies that are above that hour and 45-minute mark, and I kind of like it that way. I really really don't want them to be much longer than that. For me, horror movies just aren't really meant to be that, and unless there's some special cases, I don't think that my opinion is really going to change on that. For me, they just work being in these more contained hour-and-a-half long bursts. But like I said, you can find an example of movies that definitely justify it for me. But it's just with a franchise like Smile, where they have kind of a more basic concept and do it well. I don't know why it needs to run into the 2-hour mark, nonetheless getting up to 2 hours and 12 minutes. Like I said, telling more story than Thor Ragnarok. I'm definitely open to seeing what they do with this, if it works out, if it is good, which I really hope it is. But I don't know, I was just a little bit shocked to see this, and I kind of wanted to get my thoughts out there. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm very curious to see, do you think that Smile 2 will ultimately justify a runtime over 2 hours? Let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.